We're starting very early again, but don't worry, this episode isn't nearly as long and involved as the last one. We're just starting early this time. Maybe it'll be a habit. So we talked about how different the ways are that we can change people's dopamine tone with medication. But we also said that the one thing we couldn't affect was the dopamine receptors. We don't have a medicine for that. But I also said that there's still something we can do. So it turns out that people can lose dopamine receptors for a couple of environmental reasons. Just a couple of stresses, actually. One of them is physical isolation. And another one is being made to feel or feeling less than other people. Think of that as subservience or shame. So, and it also works, by the way, when you feel less than the person you think you should be. So that's the shame part. When you're physically isolated or feeling shame, you actually lower, your dopamine receptors are lower. They sort of get sucked back into the cell that they're on. Now, imagine that all the places in your day-to-day environment where that changes, where you feel as if you are less than somebody else because of the things around you. It's one of the reasons I take these walks, is I feel so grateful to be in this environment, this wonderful neighborhood, to see all these interesting houses and nature as I walk. Beautiful trees, birds are chirping. I'm certainly not confined. I am alone, but I feel a part of a bigger whole. So I'm not isolated on these walks. And I certainly don't feel less than on these walks. No one's making me take them. I have the freedom to take them. And so these walks at least do nothing to lower my dopamine receptor density. Think of some of the other places we go on a daily basis. Let's say we go to a doctor's office, and at the doctor's office we're treated rudely. There's a large number of people in the waiting room, and they're all filling out forms. And the people at the desk don't really seem to care. And they just want their forms filled out. And they don't care about you or why you're there or if you're feeling well or not. It's all just a machine to get you to see the doctor. What do you think is going to happen to your dopamine receptor density and therefore your dopamine tone? And how will that affect the interaction you have with the doctor? It's going to be pretty big. Now, if you've ever been in a substance abuse clinic, take a look around. There's usually a large crowd, many bureaucrats, all trying to get their paperwork done. The chairs are plastic, broken, mismatched. The walls are cinder block. The art on the wall is essentially hand lettered signs telling you all the things you can't do. And then they tell you, well, have a seat and wait. So you wait. And then you meet somebody who's underpaid and overworked and just wants to move you through the system. And all of that is the intro to probably the most important treatment in your life. And we wonder why it doesn't work. So before we get to all the things that can change a person cognitively in treatment, and there are many, many things, and there's a sequence to that too. Before we even get to that, we have to get dopamine receptor density right, or dopamine tone's not going to be right. I'm going to move around this garbage truck and stop for a minute. All right, wanted to give them room and didn't want you to have to hear the noise. So we want this treatment to work. We need people to have good dopamine tone for it to work. Even if we're going to give them medicine, we want that medicine to work. That medicine that raises dopamine amount can't work unless there's dopamine receptors there to see the medicine. But we give almost no attention to how we raise dopamine receptors, or that we lower people's dopamine receptors on a regular basis. It's a critical part of the sequence. It goes to how we set up our systems. Think about what we do in drug courts. Think about what we do in our society. What do we do with a lot of people with addictions? We put them in small cages by themselves. Well, that's going to make the disease worse, not better. What do we do when we want them to change their behavior? We try shaming them. It's not going to make the illness better, it makes it worse. So next time we're going to talk about some of the psychosocial things. And this is where most treatment programs actually start. And this is episode 7, that'll be episode 8. We'll be on episode 8, and we're finally getting to where most people start. I hope that gives you a sense of how much of the job there is to do that we're not even doing. Have a good day.